Okay, awesome. Welcome everyone to another ResearchHub weekly community call. So we've got a few kind of community-driven topics that we can touch on. So we'll just get started. So the first one is going to be, what are the most pressing notebook improvements? So we have the lab notebook on the ResearchHub platform. It's kind of a version 1. It's got some base functionality. And so just opening the floor to any suggestions that anyone has to improve that, or what features are a must. And I guess I can start with like a small one, which is just kind of a small addition of a subscript superscript into the notebook and into regular comments. Because I mean, I can think of in biology and chemistry particularly where almost every chemical you need to have like a superscript for a plus or a negative or something like that. So I think that would be pretty important. And I would imagine if we flush out like some more physics type of hubs, they'll probably require some of those Greek letters as well.
Yeah, I second that. It's something that I use a lot, and it's it's definitely useful, especially in comments, like even in no bigger text, but like when you in comments trying to put some formulas, especially formulas in there. It's something that is really handy. We don't do a lot of like math treatments, but that could be confusing, especially if you're trying to type a formula and you don't have the superscript subscript. Yeah, that could be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, you can imagine like typing out the word like theta and like gamma every time you wanted to use it, So yeah, I think that's like a nice addition. Does anyone else have any suggestions for that?
Integration of the Terra citation would be nice. I think if I were to write a scholarly article in ELN, I would definitely need that.
You're saying like a citation manager, Anton?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the goal is to flush out the lab notebook a lot more, then I do think a citation manager is a must, because I personally wouldn't use it to write any like formal documents if it had no citation manager. I might use it for small note taking, but that's about it.
Overall, I think in general, like the technical stuff is there. Apart from the citation manager that you just mentioned, you can pretty much write an article on the ELN. Maybe something that we could work on, like even as as a community, is creating some templates. So depending on the field, this is something that can be pretty useful. You go on an ELN and you already have prepared a bunch of like templates that you can share with a community, and that is something that could come pretty handy, especially if we get into reviews and so on. And it doesn't require engineering from the devs, so it's even better.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to come from some of like the scientists in the various fields, because they read enough literature to know what a template for a more like social sciences type of paper would look like versus a template versus for something that's more like hardcore STEM or something. Another one that I could think of is, once you start adding a lot of posts on the left side, it starts becoming very difficult to like scroll down infinitely to get to some of your posts. So I think having a very well nested, collapsible like foldering system would be really great. So you can have your personal lab notebook, and then have all the different say projects that you're involved in as different folders, and each one of those can be nested with other folders and documents within them. I think that'd be a big one as well. And then the last one, yeah, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, +1. So yeah, that would be great. And then the last one, I think this one is kind of big, and it is an extension off of the lab notebook, kind of. But I've been trying to probe a few people to ask, would they consider putting up their preprints on ResearchHub? And I think the consensus is, if their intention is to upload it to a really low impact journal anyway, they have absolutely no problem putting it on ResearchHub. The only issue that has been brought up almost every time is discoverability, which is if I upload my preprint to ResearchHub, will it be on PubMed or searchable on PubMed? And the answer I give them is no, not as of now. And so I think that would be kind of a big breakthrough for people putting their preprints on ResearchHub, would be if we can forward those preprints to PubMed.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Jeff. I think we can definitely get indexed by those search engines. And I've heard that as like a value prop for other like preprint server types of repositories as well. So that's definitely something we should look into. These are great suggestions, by the way. I think like part of the motivation was I was playing around with the notebook last week and adding in figures. We don't have the ability to like caption figures, which is like a pretty like basic, requirement if you want to actually publish, some kind of scientific research output. And so the idea was starting to like prioritize improvements to the notebook itself to, eventually get to the point where you could publish a preprint, pretty easily through the notebook. And just like getting a list of maybe that's 10, 20, 30 like small features to put them in a list just to start thinking about how we can build them. Another one that we were thinking about is like the ability to like export ResearchHub notebook publications to like different type of file formats. Not sure if like those kinds of like less flashy things are important for like the actual like practicality of working in a lab.
So you're saying like exporting that document as like a Word document or a PDF so you can circulate it to other people?
Yeah, just in case they don't want to use the notebook, or even, I know there's like, I'm going to get this file format wrong, but like XLM or something like that. Like if you download research outputs from like Frontiers In, for instance, they have like a bunch of different file formats.
Yeah, I think that one would actually be like semi-big because yeah, I think people are stuck. Yeah, if I use ResearchHub to create my content and I can't share it to anyone in my lab if they're not on ResearchHub, you could think about it one way, which is you're going to onboard all your friends to ResearchHub and your colleagues. But if not, then it's kind of you're almost shooting yourself in the foot, where you have all this content, you have to recopy and paste it to a new document and lose formatting and things. So I do think it's kind of an important one.
Yeah, totally. We could have some kind of like cool PDF export where like the branding's there. That way people are at least aware of ResearchHub when they see the PDFs happen like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Almost like a tiny little watermark in the corner or something like that, like in our YouTube videos. Yeah, I think that would be yeah, that sounds pretty good actually.
These are great suggestions though. So like subscript, superscript, templates, folders on the left-hand side. Anything else when it actually comes to like maybe like using LaTeX, anything like that?
Sorry, what was it? Using what?
Like being able to write in LaTeX, like within the notebook in order to help format like what the actual like publication looks like. Like overly kind of.
So I don't use LaTeX, so I cannot provide anything useful in this regard. But something else that popped to my mind, talking about the different sections, is something similar to what Notion has, the toggles. So like collapsible sections. If you have like a long article that you're writing, I don't know how difficult it is from an engineering perspective, having like the different sections, like the summary, the introduction, and so on, to be collapsible, so that you can have everything in a more kind of like compact way.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. I think we could definitely do something like that.
Yeah, that'd be a good one as well. Another one that I could think of that's a little bit, I guess not like a kind of traditional thing, but I'm thinking about it from like the perspective of making like picture collages on like, I don't know, on Instagram, for example. So figures often have like 8 panels or more sometimes. And so it's really annoying to have to format that. It actually kind of takes a long time to format things in like a Word document where you're just like formatting and making sure everything's really aligned. I think what could be really nice is if we had like a nice UI of like, here's like where my figure goes. I want to add X amount of panels in that, and then it already comes in very well aligned, and you can adjust the sizing of whatever panels very easily by dragging, and then you can insert your figure that way. I think that would help kind of streamline, and it will have a consistency in terms of like organization of the figures that come out of it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like almost like a carousel of the different like panels. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And we have something from Justin over here. Maybe add features to comment on certain parts of a note for. Sorry. So maybe add. So Justin said maybe add features to comment on certain parts of a note for collaboration purposes. So I think this is something like an inline comments, or the ability for inline comments in the notebook feature.
Would just to dive into that a little bit more, Justin, are you thinking like pre-publication comments, kind of like Google Doc collaboration, or like post-publication, anyone can comment and like leave feedback in an inline fashion?
He said in the chat, yeah, pre-publication.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That's a pretty necessary feature anytime you try and write something with like Google Docs or Notion.
Yeah, and it's there for like everything. Even like Loom has like the inline or in video comments and things like that. So
totally.
Okay. Does anyone have any other final like kind of feature requests for the notebook feature?
Maybe something else on the lateral like panel in the workspace. Maybe having the ability to see if there's an article that you're working on with other people, be able to see from the outside that there's other people working on that. So like having, I don't know, like a small icon of people that are collaboratively working on that could help. If you like, I'm just imagining, after like a year or 2 years that you're using Notebook, you have a lot of like documents and so on. You want to see all the people that are collaborating. That could be one thing, but it's just a small one.
So it would be like we kind of have the feature now where you can see avatars of who's on the document, and so you're saying like a historical register, like anybody who's ever like contributed to it.
Oh no, more like you have all of the list of the different, in your workspace, the list of the different articles, and then like I don't know, like you make that each line a little bit bigger, and at the bottom you can list like, I don't know, this is just there's like RG if I'm working on that, and there's like RG plus JK if Jeffrey is also working on the same document and so on. So you can see from the outside without getting into each document who's working on the different document.
Oh yeah, that's a good call. We definitely do something like that. These are all great suggestions, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the notebook has like a lot of really exciting potential. A lot of people don't quite know that it exists there. So it'll be exciting to see people flock into it and then probably give more suggestions down the road as well.
Yeah, I think it's something we're going to try and chip away at just consistently, while we build other major features. Just trying to use it the other week. It's like I would be frustrated, like if I was a lab and demoed it, thinking that like it would be able to support like our full functionality within a lab. So I think like getting to that point will be a big deal. That way, when people click into it, they're like, "Oh, this works." It's not like small things that frustrate them and turn them off from it. So I think it's definitely worth trying to build some of these like basically like required features to have scientific publication.
Yeah, totally. And if it's not like kind of the primary value prop of ResearchHub, I think it makes a lot of sense to chip away at it in parallel with building out other things that are better suited.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we can move on to the second point. We've got 5 points in total. So the second one would be one that I was suggesting, which is kind of what everyone's thoughts are on an integration of a self-custody wallet. We touched on this a little bit briefly a previous community call, but I think there are both pros and cons to it, and I think it's like really intimately involved with whatever we decide to do down the road, and if how much that would require a self-custodied wallet. So just interested, just high level, what everyone's thoughts are, like a thumbs up, thumbs down integration of a self-custody wallet.
So I'm in favor in general of having a self-custody wallet on ResearchHub. But I don't know, again, how big of a priority that could be in terms of like all of the things that we want to develop, and if it's something that we want to think, along the way, and how to get it out as best as we can. If it's not, like a top priority, but in general, like I'm in favor.
Okay, I see.
So just to help me wrap my head fully around like the feature, a self-custody wallet would be like an Ethereum sign-in where when you earn tokens, they're automatically deposited to your wallet, or like say like you mint an NFT or something, it automatically goes to your wallet rather than having like ResearchHub hold on to it until you like manually withdraw it. Is that how like the UX would be improved?
Yes, we don't want Brian holding on to all our assets.
Yeah, no, I think it's a reasonable opinion. I think the one difference is like gas in theory, like it would have to be like a regular kind of like withdraw to the wallet. I don't know if it makes sense to do it like in real time, because then it would be like multiple transactions a day in theory.
Yeah,
Unless gas is really cheap.
I think even with gas being cheap, like you're still paying on a transfer like $1 or something like that. And so I think it's not like very economic. If we were on another layer 2, it'd make a lot more sense. I think the one thing that it adds to, I mean, you can have it integrated, kind of connect to your account. Your account can function as it normally does, but like for example, if we do start integrating, say, crowdsourced NFTs for a crowdfunded NFTs, or if we wanted to do the soulbound token for publications, I think it'd be a lot easier on the integration for that to say, hey, I just published, and then if you click the mint NFT for me box, there's a quick, easy thing that you just sign off on, and it goes right into your wallet that's connected to your account. So something like that is what I was thinking.
By the way, at some point we're probably going to want to switch to a layer 2, right? There's just wondering. Any thoughts?
It's something we've thought about. It would it gets a little bit complicated because then like in theory a new user would have to understand what like Polygon is, or just there's a little bit of a knowledge barrier for using layer 2s, which in theory most academics who haven't even heard of like Bitcoin, it's just another barrier. But I think we do think that Ethereum will eventually become scalable, or like if it's clear that it won't, it will become imperative to switch to another chain. But I think like right now we've talked about it a little bit and don't have any like tangible plans on the horizon of switching to a layer 2. I definitely see the value of self-custody for like authorship credit. That's for sure a big deal. I think like what we'll do eventually is like you can still participate in the whole system, even without a wallet. Like if you don't even want to withdraw stuff, to like your own wallet, you can still do everything. But then like if you'd prefer kind of these more like customized like solutions, like allow for them. So like the default would be custodied by like ResearchHub, Amazon servers. But then if people wanted to like integrate their own wallet and have things like automatically routed to that, they would be able to. So to allow for that depth of like customization. But yeah, I guess like we'd have to see that like stopping people from using ResearchHub now. I think it's something that we definitely should do, but it feels lower priority than experimenting to find product market fit.
Agreed.
Yeah, also agreed. I think it just was something that I was thinking, depending on what the rest of the roadmap looked like. So like if we want to say incorporate funding, maybe it's not so so big of a deal if a funder probably doesn't care to want to have self-custody about and just sign the transaction that they're going to give $1 million to this, person who submitted a grant. But like, if we were going to go down, say, kind of I think any NFT route, I think integrating a Web3 wallet sooner would make the integration with the NFT a lot more seamless and probably less of a headache for the engineers in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. It makes a ton of sense when it comes to like minting NFTs for papers and authorship credit and stuff like that.
Yeah. Are there any, like, I guess, cons to integrating that? Maybe something like people can just spin up a bunch of wallets and make fake user accounts and spam the website. Would there be an issue with mitigating some of that spam?
I think it's like gas fees is the biggest con in my mind. But if people were willing to pay for them, then, it's like the own person's preference. And then the other con would just be the time that it would take to build it and maintain, which is like a small to medium con, not really like super big deal. I think that would probably take us like 2 weeks, like, of full attention. But yeah, I think the bigger issue would be who pays for gas, because right now ResearchHub, like the organization, is paying for it with like a research coin fee. But getting that right, I think, would be a little bit tricky, depending on how often people wanted to withdraw.
Got it. Yeah, I think the fee would be up to the person, because they'd be having to pay the fee through their direct transaction with the wallet. So, but yeah, depends. I think there would be a bucket of people that would be content with paying larger amounts of fees to maintain custody. But I think the larger scientific community probably generally doesn't care.
Yeah, I think that's kind of our perspective now, with open to having, that perspective change. But yeah, I think self-custody wallets, it's like crypto people love it, but like the average person, barely understands why it's necessary, and they just want to have their password, recoverable. So I think there's a certain segment of our target user that would love it, but not sure how much like the average target user, would find extra value at this moment.
Yep. I think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like related to this, this is probably also the reason why we're not having any kind of like wallet integrated kind of like sign-in option, and we're going through Google, because that's kind of like easier to do, easier for people to kind of like log in, because that would be pretty interesting to me to like be able to log in just through my wallet. But yeah, I guess that's low priority as well.
We've had like a lot of demand for this feature, and we've like pushed trying to build it a couple times, and it just hasn't stuck. So like, I think probably post product market fit, it'll make more sense, or it's something that we could probably try and spin up within the open source community. If somebody was like really excited about it, and then we could probably add it there just as like an option at the top, like sign in with your each wallet. Because I know there are some like I think some companies that help make it pretty easy. I saw like a Magic Link company last week too, that does some pretty cool things. So yeah, maybe that's a good open source project.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be good. I think just like if you went down that route, just like a MetaMask, Coinbase wallet, and Wallet Connect probably makes a lot of sense to just have those three options. Cole was asking if it'd be more difficult to adjust as time goes on.
If wallets would be more difficult to adjust?
I think so.
I think it would be, it seems like the same lift when it comes to actually building the integration, where it would be probably like 2 weeks of our team's time, no matter when we did it. I think if it's sign in with Ethereum, this feels less scary in the fact that we're not really storing any user data. So there's not like a larger attack surface because of that, as opposed to if we like did our own like email password sign-in like protocol. So I don't think it would make a difference whether we did it now or if we were doing it like while we were growing quickly.
Okay.
I could
Yeah.
be wrong though. We'd have to ask Kobe.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, yeah, something to consider would be to open source it. So I know Tyler, you said you're traveling, but maybe that's something to keep in mind too as open source devs start rolling in. Maybe consider like putting up a bounty for that. Okay, we can go on to the next thing, which is so Joanna was asking about like interoperability between hubs, and then also like how to leverage outside and inside involvement and tasks. So Joanna, do you think you could elaborate maybe a little bit on this?
Yeah, so I think Patrick's point about OpenAlex, it's very nice in the sense that how Wikipedia does, like directing a link from something scientific to another something scientific that maybe relates to another discipline. And I think it would be nice for the hubs and the persons who contribute to maybe to form teams or to start real life projects either in the laboratories or at school, or we discussed about that in some previous calls. So that was what I was thinking about.
Okay, so like I guess like instead of interoperability, maybe more like multidisciplinary, where you like, for example, like what Ricardo did with that one paper where Ricardo and a couple of other people who had similar backgrounds but slightly different lenses that they were looking at the same paper through, and they got together and were able to kind of give their own perspective on that paper.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for the way ResearchHub is right now. Blockchain, I mean, interoperability is more related to the blockchain stuff in the sense that you can connect information and channels and chains and institutions and so on in a secure sense. So let's say like a fax machine, but this is like very old school, and yeah. So I think it would be nice to create something like a search engine or something like that, that it's connected one to another in the sense that the internet works.
Okay. Yeah, I think also like what makes sense, I think with this example is like maybe like a little marketplace as well, where
Yeah.
you can kind of call upon people from different hubs to say, hey, I'd like your expertise on this thing, or I'm doing the experiment in the lab and I need your help, but it should be coming from another hub because they're the expert on that segment.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Okay.
It would be pretty cool if a more robust reputation system where you could create a bounty that can only be filled by someone of a certain reputation in a specific hub. So you could basically like request top 10% of biostatisticians to come over and help you with a specific task or something.
Totally.
Yeah. D-Work has something kind of similar, but it's based off of you could like Discord role gate something or token gate it. So if they owned a particular NFT, only the person who owns that NFT would be able to fulfill the task or even apply for that task. So I think something similar to that definitely makes a lot of sense. I think it's even more applicable to internally to ResearchHub than it is to something like dwork that's a little more broad.
Yeah.
I think this will be, will become much easier when we implement hashtags in general, because that way you could have like, you're publishing a paper or you're uploading a paper and you're putting a couple tags there to, like, I don't know, COVID-19, and you're studying epidemiology and I'm studying, I don't know, I'm developing a sensor for that, and maybe we can come together and do something together. So all of that multidisciplinary activities that we kind of like spearheaded, kind of like individually a couple months ago, would be way easier to implement when we have hashtags, and that will come. I think will come pretty much naturally. So people gather together, and then we can have a couple of bunties for, I don't know, like joint reviews where people analyze a paper from different perspectives. So there's a ton of things that we can do there, either individually, just by people teaming up, on Discord, creating like, I don't know, like study groups or like working groups on a specific paper, or more like systematically through the platform. But once we implement hashtags, because that way it will be just easier in general.
Yeah, so this is actually like a perfect transition. So thank you, Ricardo. One thing I wanted to bring up at this call is I was looking through OpenAlex. If you are familiar with OpenAlex, it's like a open source like citation database. So it tracks like all research publications like every day as they're published, like who are the authors, what institutions did they attend, like who like gave the grant for this research. And one of the things that they do that's really interesting is they apply like concept tags to all of the scientific literature that's been published and all of the new literature every day. And so what these are is it's like basically a 6-layer tree starting from like 19 base fields of like philosophy, economics, physics, biology, all the way down to like the example. I don't know if this is actually right, but it would be like biology would be the base layer, and then there would be genetics would be layer 1, and then like epigenetics would be layer 2, and then histone deacetylases would be layer 3, and it would just keep on going down forever. And so this is something that's already been created essentially on OpenAlex. We could just turn on these tags where like some AI has already like done a first pass of labeling every paper with these concepts. There's like 200,000 of them, and like each paper, I think it's like 85% of them have at least one tag, and then it increases kind of like their normal distribution after that. But yeah, just curious what everybody thinks of that as a potential way to like kind of cut corners to a tagging system without necessarily needing any like manual labor and like minimum like engineering time required.
Massive +1 on that. I think that would be really great, depending, I guess, how it's implemented. If we can easily involve that into like searchable and like discoverability stuff on the platform, and then also, I mean, if like there's a way to, if we could incorporate a way to also add a tag that might not be on there, or even like remove some tags that I'm sure like the AI doesn't label them 100% correctly. So if there's like some kind of ability for us to manipulate it a bit, I think it'd be huge.
Yeah, I think we could do something where maybe editors earn coins for like correcting tags or like making more detailed tags. And then I'm pretty sure we can even do something with reputation through it, where like authors, if their publications have like these concept tags, then they'll like increase their rep within that concept or something. There's a lot of different cool things we could do, but it basically just saves us the effort of having to assign tags. Like they're all done for us in like a systematic way that OpenAlex agrees with.
Yeah, I think it could be a great, transition until we decide, I don't know, to develop something internal. That could be a really, really good place to start.
Yeah, the more I
Maybe
Cool. Yeah.
oh, go
in
for it, Johan.
this, okay, maybe in this way we can start also the citations management, because it's easier. Is that correct, Patrick? I mean, could we connect?
Sorry, you mind saying that again? I'm not sure if I fully understood.
Hmm. Could be a start to connect multiple databases for a citation management system.
Yeah, I think we could definitely incorporate the data that they have. There's like 2 or 3 of these different kinds of databases out there. This is just the first one that I'd seen that did like fairly detailed tagging.
Yeah.
So how would that practically work? So we still have to upload the papers on ResearchHub, right? And then we interact with the interface on OpenAlex, because I'm not familiar with the tool. So how would that work?
So
exactly?
what would happen is like when you'd upload the paper, a
Mhm.
couple of concepts would be automatically tagged. So
Oh.
it would be like another piece of metadata next to like the authors, the journal. It would be like, we could say like, hey, here are the keywords or like key concepts or something.
Massive. Okay, yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely something that we should try out.
Yeah, the thing I was thinking is like we have a weird issue where like, if you're a grad student, your, realm of where you'd probably feel comfortable like, talking about it online. And so if you show up to ResearchHub and you want to learn about like histone deacetylases, that's like what you study, you can't really find them. Like genetics doesn't really fit. Like if you go to like cancer, that doesn't really fit. So basically your realm of expertise is undiscoverable. And so we're a little bit too broad. Like we have to facilitate like very broad discovery, but then also discovery within like a subfield where people can like find, relevant conversations to them.
Yeah, I think the tags I think they keep making more and more sense as I think about them more. I think it seems to be underlying what a lot of people keep discussing about. So yeah, I do think it would be a nice implementation. Do you know, Patrick, if we would then use any of those tags to maybe restructure like layers of hubs or anything like that, or use it? So like, for example, if there was a cardiology tab, I just using this example because I saw Nathan come in, but if there was a cardiology tag, then we still have a cardiology hub, but if someone uploads something into medicine and uses the cardiology tag on it, then it's like almost kind of weirdly redundant, where like, do you need the cardiology hub because you have the cardiology tag now? And so that would kind of force us to kind of reconsider certain hubs.
Yeah, I think the way this makes sense in my mind, if we decide to build this now, it would be a little clunky. Like we would just try and get these tags in to see like how they fit, how people use them. And then in theory, like when we do the hackathon around reputation, basically say, hey, this is another way that we can potentially like do a hub structure or like have or reputation go from like a like top level hub to like sub hubs or whatever, and then make a change like a more permanent, complete, well thought out change after the hackathon.
That makes sense. I think what we could do is to make it kind of like complementary, like the tags and the hub structure. A good solution, at least starting with the new structure, could be having the hub structure. I don't want to say the more generally possible, but having broader, let's say broader kind of like field. So we started with the big hubs, and then we got into like a second layer with like smaller hubs. but then the real granularity is added through tags. So in that way, the hubs are kind of like broad enough for people to be able to discuss a lot of topics. But at the same time, someone that just wants to learn about something specific, example COVID-19, could do that through the use of tags, interacting with people from different hubs. So that at least within hubs, we don't have hubs that are like too specific and there's no people, there's like not enough people in there to discuss a specific topic. And it's more like hubs like that are talking to each other.
Totally. The other thing we can do is something where like maybe some of these like more niche tags, like they're like unopened hubs, where maybe like you can be hit with a banner that says, hey, you know, are you a neuroendocrinologist? Like, do you want to be an editor of the neuroendocrinology hub? Like, get 10 people to say, or 10 like neuroendocrinologists to claim papers and say they'll participate. And then boom, it's unlocked and you're the editor or something like that.
That's a great idea. Like having tags that after a certain kind of like threshold of activity can converge into hubs if they're like big enough.
Yeah, especially if it goes niche. And I think this the tagging system from OpenAlex is from like the Microsoft Academic Graph, where they had a product and tried to essentially like help to categorize like all research outputs. So it's pretty systematic and I think like established and respected as a way to do like the taxonomy of science.
Yeah, that sounds good. Does anyone have any other comments about the OpenAlex integration? We already integrate OpenAlex to some extent already, so this sounds like it'd be pretty easy, right? Just like literally like integrate one other thing from them.
Can I just say,
pretty much.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
What you just mentioned might actually be a larger solution to the hub restructuring issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's all. Because I
especially having like niche reputation, I think is very cool. Where like to allow experts in their subfields to be recognized as such, but still like hold, you know, above layperson expertise in like related fields. I think could be very cool. This allows for like interdisciplinary like I guess reputation too, because some of these concepts like they have their tree structure hierarchy, but like a paper might be tagged with like a third layer deep level of engineering, but then also like a fifth layer deep level of physics. So that way the author could in theory like gain reputation in, you know, both physics and engineering, which is probably, you know, more of an accurate way to track it.
Okay, that also means a tighter control on the hubs that are selected. Because let's say someone publishes something on a hub that is not, you know, correct, then I'm gaining some reputation in a hub that is not the hub that I should gain reputation in. So that also means kind of like a tighter control of their selection of the hubs, I guess.
I think there's a lot of cool implementations that it would help facilitate.
Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, I like it. It sounds a bit like if anyone's used Roam Research and you've seen how the knowledge graphs build up, where just by tagging different pieces of information, so different papers or whatever, you start to build these sort of wider concentric rings that link to each other. So you might have, medicine linking to all the subspecialties of medicine and then whatever, but then there's nothing stopping medicine linking to bioengineering, which might be in a completely different orbit, but you get that sort of slight link there. And so then, experts could then also sort of span those different like cross-disciplinary links. I really like that idea.
And I think also this would be at scale, really awesome for even kind of external projects or journals where they have like an easily filterable reputation system to ask people for to review or to be like kind of reviewers of grants or something like that. Because the way like for grant reviews, you know, usually you have 3 or so reviewers, but generally a couple of them are in the higher level field that you're in. So they're in neuroscience, but maybe they don't understand Ephren biology. And then generally there's one person that has some kind of expertise in that little niche. And so I think it'd be very, very useful to for other people to maybe, I don't know, pay some kind of fee, and then they can leverage that system that we have built up with all the reputations to filter through people, and you'd be able to call upon the right person for the job.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, just making like grant applications more effective, like recruiting reviewers. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and for publications as well. I have a publication that's been in submission for like I don't know, 3-4 months now. And the first 2 months were just them trying to find reviewers for us. So if that can even help alleviate it for even our quote unquote traditional legacy competitors, that's still like a big win for accelerating science.
Totally.
Okay. So then since we already knocked this one out, then the other one we'll jump to, which is the last one on the list, which is brought up by Ricardo, which is how to bring up kind of exposure to expiring bounties. So Ricardo, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so I was browsing through the bounties section on the homepage. Now we have that section, so I was kind of like browsing through it, and I was looking for some recent bounties, and I realized that there was a couple bounties from Sadvik, one that kind of like I think it expires like at midnight, another one expiring in like a couple of days, and I was like, damn, I should have learned. I should have known that a bounty was expiring like today. And so that brought me to think, okay, there's we should find a way to advertise expiring bounties. I think on the homepage, at least kind of like at least the last day of potentially submitting an answer, but even like 3 days before, I think it's a good kind of like deadline for kind of like a good reminder, let's say, for the bounties. And then after the bounty has expired, I think it would be nice to kind of like have some way to kind of like publish the initial question and the selected answer. I don't know exactly how to publish that, even if it's like another post or a different avenue, but having a way to show, okay, this was the original answer. Sorry, this was the original question, and among all of these answers, this was selected as the the best one. Kind of like a recap.
Yeah, this is a great point. I guess so. We've been thinking about this a little bit, but would like to hear, like, in your ideal world, like, what would be a good way to help bring people's attention to like soon to be expiring bounties?
So first of all, I think the banner for Sycon worked pretty well, unless like judging the clicks that it got. Like a banner at the top with like a list of expiring bounties. That could not work extremely well at scale, because that would be pretty big if there's was a lot of like bounties expiring. But for now, I think it could be a good solution, because I think we would have like 1 or 2 bounties expiring per day, so that could be a good way to show that in the on page. And I would say like the last day, a reminder 1 day before the expiration date would be enough.
Totally. So what we were thinking about doing, this is like kind of the same, like a little bit more subtle, but in theory, like as a bounty was expiring, I think when it's 1 day away, to send a notification to people who have subscribed to that hub. So it would start out as like an in-app notification. So if like a question bounty is expiring in the next 24 hours, like when you log in, you've got a notification saying like, hey, go click on Stat6 question and answer it if you want to earn XRSD or something like that. And then what we do after that, or what we've talked about doing, is also emailing. So not just having in-app notifications, but like having some kind of regular digest that goes out to everyone who's followed a specific hub about bounties, saying like, hey, here are the bounties most relevant to you. And then maybe at the bottom, it can be like, by the way, these ones are expiring, this week. So go ahead and answer these because they need answers or something. And then another thing we were thinking is like, so on the homepage right now, the default filter for bounties is like a hot score kind of, where it's a combination of like upvotes, like answers, like supported RSC that helps to dictate kind of the like order that you see them. And so one thing we can do here is like if, you know, maybe it's like the last 72 hours and a question hasn't been answered yet, we can like inflate its weight within this algorithm. That way it's more likely to show up to the top. My thoughts here are like, I think we should have a filter. I think the default filter for bounties should just be total bounty. So like if you want to get exposure on your bounty, the way you do it is by putting a lot of research coins on it. So like doubles as advertising almost. And then I think we should have a filter for ending soon or something like that, or like inverse time to like completion or something. So that way you can see like the bounties that are ending soonest. But yeah, so long diatribe there, but basically like I think we can help to like uncover them, you know, for discovery better through like filters, and then in-app notifications, and then in theory, once we build this part out, like a bounty digest, more or less, that pings people what's relevant to.
Yeah, big +1 on the kind of like expiring soon, and that could just be a filter of like less than 24 hours, and you have that section filled with like bounties that are expiring soon. And I already see that you have, you know, you kind of have like a different color for bounties that expire. I don't know how long, like it's probably like less than 24 hours. The expiring date becomes red. So that was already thought, I think, at the beginning. The email, yes, could be a good idea. Again, I don't know how many emails I could get for like, if we include that in the digest, yeah, that could be a good idea, because otherwise if I like an email every day for like expiring bounties, that would be, I think, pretty like too much. And yeah, a big +1 for notifications as well. I think it doesn't hurt to have some in-app notifications. They're probably the one that, you know, I would prefer even more than emails, because I have everything in there on ResearchHub.
Totally. Another thing that we've thought about too is like having the editor's role essentially include like trying to make sure that most of the questions that have bounties have at least one answer to them, or are answered by the initial person. And so like in theory, we could ping editors if they have expiring like bounties soon, to kind of like help them do like the social side of recruiting people who could potentially answer it or whatever, kind of like a traditional editor at a regular journal like recruits peer reviewers. So that could be like a next step, but I think like just helping to make people, you know, aware of them is good to get started, and that could be a banner or a notification or whatever.
I think including the editors would distort the market. Like, you know, maybe like whatever price the person is putting on the bounty isn't adequate, and then having the editors answer it. I think it would make more sense to just make the information available, and then have the pricing, like have the person be able to adjust the pricing to reflect the actual value of the information that they're seeking.
Yeah, totally. I think there is an aspect of like just making people aware of it though, where like in theory that's a decent email to get if you're a researcher and someone's put a bounty on like a question, and it's like, oh hey, you can earn, you know, X dollars if you answer this within the next 3 days. Yeah, just an early idea. I don't think we'll go in that direction, but
no, if they're just making other people aware, you know, but I feel like they're, you know, like if you're on ResearchHub, there should be a way of the website just like making you aware of what bounties might be relevant to you, other than having the editors reach out to people specifically. That would be just as effective, it seems like. But if we're having them do the answering, I think that's distortive. If it's them reaching out, we could do that, but it seems like we could also do that more efficiently just by having proper notifications, etc.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like a half measure. I think if we got like a reference manager feature working well, and we're able to like identify essentially who would be the perfect person to answer this question and push them a notification, that's probably the best way to go about it. But yeah, this would be like a social solution until we got to that point.
Have we talked about everything that's on the list?
Yeah, that's everything on the agenda. So we got 3 minutes to freestyle.
So I had a quick thought. Not sure, just kind of want to toss this out there. I was listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast, and there's a lot of information on there. Super useful, which I didn't have to take 2 hours to go through it, though. Like, the hypothesis feature could be really useful for something like that. With a lot of it could just be laid out, and the citation and the relevant studies also really accessible, and commentary is also really accessible. I think that could be really useful. And there are a lot of people, science popularizers on different platforms that may actually, especially if they could gate it with people paying RSC or something to access it, that could be a useful thing for them. Or not. I mean, tipping might also work, but just a thought.
I think it's a great thought. I think like a lot of science YouTube videos, like I'm thinking of like Dr. Sinclair and Eleanor Shiki, like they'll address some like big picture topic and cite a couple of papers in them. And having like a UI where you could, this is a little bit of like a tangent here, but with our citation manager feature, one thing we've thought about is, how when you go on Wikipedia and you see a link to another Wikipedia article, you can just hover over it and it'll like pop up abstract, for lack of a better term. So that way I don't actually have to click into it, but I can like look up and like, see where Nepal is if I want to, and what the population of Nepal is, if I'm reading an article. And so I think we could do something very similar with the hypothesis feature if we have like a robust citation manager where like people could, add these studies to support a hypothesis, like whatever Huberman's latest episode was about. And then when you're reading kind of like the show notes, you can hover over the paper link and it'll pop up like Wikipedia style abstract. That's like, hey, here's the authors, here's the summary figure, here's the abstract of the paper, and then here's the peer review rating from ResearchHub users or something like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, they're, conceivably, what I was thinking, how each section on the YouTube, they're like chapters essentially, and you can see like what each section relates to. So if something could be done in like in similar chunks, where there's like a pop-up, the related citations for the hypothesis related to, every given section. Like the most recent one was just like how to increase dopamine levels, the baseline dopamine levels. And he went through like the history of it and, like what substances increase it in unsustainable ways, etc. And they're basically like chapters. They're like deal with each aspect of that topic. So if like each aspect of that topic has a hypothesis, and if you could just have like the related papers, you could hover over, or, there can be different ways you could set up the interface. I haven't thought about the optimal way, but the fact that there are already sort of chapters or like chunks that you can go through, it would be easier to do it that way instead of going through like an entire paper where you read and then check each citation. But if it was in more like a chapter format, and then each one just had like the relevant hypothesis and the relevant papers supporting those hypotheses. And if people could make comment on them or add new research affecting the conclusions reached there, that would also be super useful.
Yeah, it's funny you say this because this is almost exactly what Brian mentioned to our team last week, where what he really wanted is basically the ability to ask the question, like, how do you sustainably increase your dopamine levels, and then put a bounty on it and allow for someone like Andrew Huberman to come in and like share, a hypothesis with lots of citations in like a digestible format for anyone who wants to like participate from the outside and like read the answer and like learn from it or whatever. So yeah, I think our heads are definitely going in this direction. I think we probably need like some robust like citation interface first in order to really make it like something like usable. But yeah, I think that would be amazing. And there are like, pretty much like the marketing strategy writes itself, right? Like there's these science influencers that are basically doing this, but this would help make their content like easier to follow along with.
Yep. Totally.
That's a great idea. Thanks for bringing it up.
I think Joanna had her hand up for the last comment here.
Yeah, so I just thinking that this is an awesome idea.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one, Edwin. I mean, everything's already segmented already in the YouTube videos. So it's like, I think Loom kind of has something where it's like a in video comment where like you can put like a comment at time number 4 and you can plug in a comment, but instead of a comment, for your situation, it would be plugging in different citations for or against the comment that was made in the video.
Cool.
Yep. So that's it. That's all we have for today. Are there any like kind of last minute questions or things that people want to bring up before we call it?
Thanks for hosting, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. Okay, everybody. Well, have a good one and we'll catch you next week.
See you, everyone.
So
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.